Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So we are on to our 7th lecture today. I am still checking your work. Alhamdulillah, there has been a lot of improvement. I would just like to ask you guys whether you feel you have developed the some sort of hands-on skill for doing data wrangling. Whether you have benefited from this hands-on activities, how much you have benefited. I would just like to have your opinion on it.
So I think from the first assignment that we did, उसके बाद से I personally felt like थोड़ा सा better हुआ है, मतलब समझ आ रहा है अब चीजें किस तरह क्या करना है. But अभी भी क्या होता है कि sometimes हमें वो समझ नहीं, एटलीस्ट मुझे वो समझ नहीं आती कि किस डेप्थ तक इसको इस इंफॉर्मेशन या इस डेटा फ्रेम को एनालाइज करना है. या एट व्हाट पॉइंट डू यू से कि अच्छा अब मैं बहुत ज़्यादा जा रहा हूँ इंफॉर्मेशन में, बहुत ज़्यादा डेप्थ में इसको देख रहा हूँ. एंड am I, like how do you figure out the right amount of depth किसी को एनालाइजिंग में लगानी चाहिए?
Yeah, that's in fact that's a very good question, and I'll tell you the problem. The problem is that in the companies normally the data wrangling strategy is not implemented normally, right? The companies, even the data team does not prioritize the data wrangling activities, because they probably do not see the correlation between cleaning the data and understanding the data and getting the analysis on BI charts, or getting the analysis on predictive analytics or time series forecasting. So as far as I'm concerned, my knowledge tells me that there is a very strong correlation between how much your data is clean and what are you looking on the charts. What you see on the dashboards on Power BI or Tableau is what comes there after a very long process. But that process is not standardized, at least I think in Pakistan. Things are like more SQL based rather than based on data wrangling in Python. So the data wrangling component is severely missing. So that's why this question is arising, that how much we have to do. Actually, what the experts say is that you should spend at least 60% of your time cleaning your data and understanding your data. And then you should go towards the BI reporting and dashboarding and machine learning, or even big data analytics. That definitely comes afterwards. And because this is a big data diploma, so you should understand in the big data domain, we do not have typically SQL. Okay, we are working with a different breed of databases, which you will obviously learn in the next semester. And if you do want to use SQL, so you can use SQL over those databases as well. But the infrastructure for handling big data is very different from the infrastructure that we have in the companies right now. So when I write how much data wrangling I should do, or what is the strategy for doing data wrangling, so please keep in mind that the strategy is going to be different for pure big data scenarios. The strategy is going to be different for pure big data scenarios, and it is going to be different for the normal company use case that we have. Okay. So the answer to your question is there is no standard answer, but the ideal answer is you should at least clean all of your data, and you should be able to understand the uh, the message of each and every column, and also the message of multiple columns, like we have seen in the statistical analysis case in Anova and t-test, and in correlation analysis, that we require multiple columns to understand the data. So in this way, there are many queries or hypotheses you can develop about the data, but the problem is the business does not see the value of data wrangling. And they do not see the value because the data team or the IT team also do not see the value of developing a data wrangling strategy. Hence, your analysis that you are presenting on the dashboards and other, they are like you know, you have to go from one destination to another destination on an aircraft, for example. Okay, so you have to take the aircraft, right, or you have to take the train to get from one point to another train. If you directly present the BI charts and you directly present the results of predictive analytics without going into data wrangling and your results on data wrangling, then it is like you just pick a person up and then put him in the new destination without taking the train or without taking the aircraft. So suddenly he finds himself in a new place as if he is teleported, and he has no understanding of the columns that are there. He has no understanding of the data. But when you see the beautiful charts, you see the Mako chart, you see the rainbow, you see the radar chart, and you get really influenced by the results, right? And you think this is a very cool presentation, but how much impact that dashboard is having in solving your problem, that remains to be quantified. So I personally do not agree with this strategy of presenting the BI charts or the BI results or the SQL reporting results directly to the top level administration without telling them something about wrangling. Okay, so one question that arises from this scenario is the management might say we already know about these things. So I do not think so that they can give such a response for every analysis of data wrangling. For example, what about correlation analysis? What about scatter plots? If there is a correlation between two columns, like for example, between age and sales, then that correlation might be varying for different seasons of the year. And that could be true for the last 3 years or 5 years. So the management might not be knowing the exact correlation values or the amount of correlation of different types of customers across different types of seasons. They might be having a very general idea, okay, we know that the age is correlated with the sales. Okay, we know that the height is correlated with the age. We know that the customer density is correlated with the salary, whatever. But showing them the charts is another thing. Okay, so always, it is going to be true that when you present very detailed analysis of your data, before showing them the BI charts or before showing them the machine learning results, then they will be able to understand those charts and the predictive results in a better way and define more in-depth and better strategies. Okay, so you should definitely wrangle as much as you can wrangle. So in this course, I have basically conveyed to you all the main components of data wrangling that should be there. The first component is, you got to clean your data, and that means a lot of things. And the second component is that you got to understand your data, and that also means a lot of things. And that needs to be, presented to the management as a separate report, as a progress report, for example, for your BI initiative. So in Pakistan right now, we are having lots and lots of BI level teams, BI charts and BI tools, but I do not think so that they have a data wrangling strategy in place. And I do not think so that they are presenting the data wrangling results to the top management as a separate component. So that this is, now I can conclude that the analysis that is being done is inaccurate analysis. The analysis is not accurate as far as I am concerned, because the management does not have an in-depth understanding of the data. And it is possible that even the data team does not have an in-depth understanding of the data. You know, the problem is when you have a BI tool like Power BI, so your tendency is to import the data, learn the tool, do the transformation, and show the results. Now that is not how it happens. You know, you need a strategy to use the tool. Like for example, if you want to use Power BI on the cloud, or you want to use some other software on the cloud, so first you need to develop a strategy for using the tool, that why we are using it, what we expect from this, you know. So you are doing the BI course right now, so you will get to know business intelligence ke andar, um, the more you spend time on the tool, you know, the more you get. Okay, the more time you spend on the BI tool, the more charts, different types of charts you can make, and the more analysis you can get. But you know, the business intelligence walon ka masla ye hai ke they are just bombarding you with different types of charts. You know, I can show the same analysis across 3 or 4 charts. So why do I need to show all of these charts? Okay. So it is even not easy to do business intelligence, because you never know ke kaun se charts अच्छे हैं, kaun se charts अच्छे नहीं हैं. So you do a lot of trial and error in your BI project, and no one can say your dashboard is not standardized, because there is no strategy for developing a business intelligence dashboard. There are guidelines, but no one can raise a finger ke why did you use this chart, why did not you use this chart, because typically the management does not have any answer to that, right? They don't have the knowledge of, for example, what a macro chart does, okay, or what a radar chart does, for example, or for example, what a tree map does. How can you interpret that, you know? So it even takes time to make the management comfortable with those charts. So the answer to your question is in my opinion, what is happening right now is that people are doing lots and lots of Power BI. They have some basic analyses in place which are satisfying the needs of most of the managers. But I am 100% positive that the management does not have an in-depth understanding of the data, because the data wrangling component is not there. Either they are not implementing that, or they are implementing it partially, or they are not showing any results to the top level management. So the people who have to develop the data wrangling strategy, they do not have in-depth understanding of the data, which can only come through wrangling, which cannot come through BI charts. BI chart is just a layer over your database, right? It's just a layer which takes data from different columns and puts them in one chart. That's it. And you follow some guidelines to make a very interactive dashboard. That's it. But I mean, does it solve your problem? Does the management understand the data, the problems in the data? So dirty data is having an impact on our businesses, is having a very large impact on our businesses. But because the competition is not that strong in Pakistan, so people are just moving along, you know. यहाँ पे लोग इतना सोचते नहीं है, इतने लोग पढ़े लिखे नहीं हैं कि they are into competitive pricing, you know, comparison shopping. So people don't have that time. Most of the people are poor or lower middle class people, so they just go and buy things. They do not have the luxury to do comparison shopping. They just go to the cheapest place and start buying things. So that is why you have a very large customer base and you don't see the need for data wrangling. But in the developed world, you know, you cannot do such a thing. So I'm 100% sure that even small companies in America or UK or maybe in Australia, whatever, so they have a very good understanding of their data at the managerial level.
Least priority for the companies, right?
Nasir, your voice is breaking up.
So they don't want to spend this area. That this area is still on the least priority. Is it okay? Oh.
Yeah, you can say, look, the problem is ke Pakistan ke andar the change can be brought easily. Pakistan mein we got the IT department. The IT department in a company is a very powerful department, although they might not be having that much funding or whatever. But the data is in their control. So yes, it is true that they are not prioritizing, the IT department or the business is not prioritizing the data wrangling activities. That is true. Although the data is in their control, but the data typically is out of control. Okay? When the data increases, when you have big data, definitely the data gets out of control. So मैं आपको हल्फिया कहता हूँ कि a big company which has data of thousands of customers for the last 5 or 10 years, they are not using all the data for analysis. I can guarantee you that. Okay? They are not using all the data for analysis. The IT department might not even have the idea which data sets are more relevant for solving a business problem. The business might not be having the idea what are the core business problems that we are facing. Besides कि भाई हमने अपना revenue बढ़ाना है. That's not the core business problem, right? Everyone wants to increase the revenue. The core business problem is that we have to understand the customer. That is the core business problem. If you have a 360-degree view of the customer, then everything, the sales is in your hands. So the target is not to increase the revenue or the KPI. The target is to understand the customer. And for that, you need data wrangling. Okay, because the customer patterns are changing throughout different seasons. And you need to understand when that change is happening and how it is happening, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay. So yeah, what I'm going to talk about today is that we have to develop a strategy, and the strategy is not difficult to develop. And we have to absolutely bring that change in our organization. And we can go through a 3-monthly period, in which we can do an experiment. Okay, let's make this change. Okay, let's get this implemented. It's not very expensive. I can get this implemented from my own team right now. And let's try it out ke data wrangling ke results present karne se kya hota hai. Okay, let's try it out ke what difference does it make to the top management? Is it useless or is it useful? How much it is useful, how much it is useless, etc., etc. So, okay, is this thing fine?
Yes.
Ji, Kapil.
Yes, sir. I still having a confusion that, for example, you gave us the COVID data, and that data contain a lot of columns. So I got confusion that how can I analyze the minimum number of columns and to get the answer of the question based on the analysis. So because it's quite difficult to analyze each and every column and then get the predictive knowledge related to the question. So in that situation, what should we do?
Yeah, that's a Kapil, very good question. Look, the point is that you must have a business question in front of you. Okay, so the business question is given by the business, right? So the business team is going to give you the problem that they're facing. In some cases, the business has a very generic idea of what the problem is. So when you wrangle the data and you understand the data, then it is quite possible that you can develop even the business problem. Okay, I am looking at each individual column and I'm seeing this problem. The COVID data that I gave is basically about understanding the patterns of the COVID behavior. Okay, just let me open that data. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, so this is the data which is being given to us. Okay, so we have, first of all, let's see how many columns we have. So we have lots and lots of columns, so 85 columns. Okay, so okay, so we are reviewing this data, which is what we're going to review right now about the COVID patients. So they have recorded information about the patients, how much time they remained in the hospital, what kind of diseases they already had, heart disease or vascular disease, congestive heart failure, cardiovascular, dementia, COPD, diabetes mellitus. So I think these are all binary values, whether they have these values, whether they have these diseases or not, because we have seen the patients who already have a lung disease or a heart disease, they are more likely to die because of COVID complications. Oxygen saturation level kitna tha, mean arterial pressure in the heart probably in millimeter Hg, D dimer, which is also it is a basically test value in milligram, platelets, all of these, because I got sick right now, so all of these were tested. Platelet count, D dimer, so ये सारा मेरा test हुआ है, ये पर international normalized ratio, blood urea nitrogen. So I think ये जितनी भी all the things which are confusing you is basically their measurement of the lab tests. Do you understand? जो कोविड पेशेंट्स के जो लैब टेस्ट हुए हैं, तो उन लैब टेस्ट के रिजल्ट्स की क्या वैल्यूज आई हैं? आई थिंक दे हैव रिकॉर्डेड दैट, सो आई विल सी द डेटा राइट नाउ इन ऑर्डर टू अंडरस्टैंड इट बेटर. The data set can help in predicting the mortality risk or severe COVID-19 patients in the early stages when they just get admitted into the hospital. So now that's what we have to understand. There must be one variable which is telling us whether they got COVID or did not get COVID, or whether they died due to COVID or did not die due to COVID. There must be one variable which is telling us. So the people who died, so they must be having that as 1, right? So we separate the data for those who have a value of 1, who died due to COVID. And then we analyze the more important diseases that they had, for example, heart disease or some sort of pulmonary disease, or maybe some sort of this urology related test parameters. So whether we notice anything different for the people who died and for the people who did not die. So if I was in your place and I was doing this analysis, so what I will do is I will look at the patients who died and see their data and compare that using inferential statistics with those patients who did not die, and see whether there is any significant difference, and try to understand what is happening for those people who died and did not die. So ये एक उसमें चीज थी जो आप को करनी चाहिए थी. बहरहाल I will see what you guys have done. So this 85 columns. So this is directly the file. So data for 4,700 patients with confirmed SARS COVID-19 2 infection were included. So they are the confirmed COVID patients. Or ab dekhte hain, let's look at the data now. So now we got some of the business knowledge. What is the understanding? By reading this, okay, I got the understanding what I'm supposed to do. I don't care for prediction of mortality right now. Okay, what I want to understand is जो लोग मर गए कोविड में, उनके लैब के टेस्ट पैरामीटर्स क्या थे, और जो लोग नहीं मरे उनके लैब के टेस्ट पैरामीटर्स क्या थे, and whether there is any significant difference between the two parameters. What is the correlation between the people who died and the people who did not die? So that is the game that I want to play. Okay, I don't know whether आप में से कितनों ने ये ज़हन रखा है, but let's look at the data to understand it in a better way. Okay, so now you can see let's start from the beginning. So deviation cohort, what does that mean? Derivation cohort. Ji.
The cohort from which the data has been compiled, maybe.
So we got this value as 1 as 0, but I do not think so. This that's the point. In the normal business use case, you are going to have 85 columns in many tables, right? 60 columns, 50 columns, 40 columns, 80 columns in many tables. The point is if you understand the business problem, then only you will be able to identify the column. That is the job that you have to do in the data wrangling stage, not at the BI stage, right? So BI maybe the initial part is data wrangling part. So the data team will tell you, or the IT team will tell you, if they are trained on data analysis, which columns are necessary. So let's try to figure this out. So so there are two columns. So derivation cohort, I do not understand. So I will just put that as red right now. Okay, I'm not considering that right now. Okay. What is the difference between LOSY and LOS?
LOSY basically, I'm thinking it means कि whether they were admitted to the hospital, like did they stay or not. Because अगर आप loss को देखें ना, जो जहाँ पे zero है वहाँ पे zero लिखा हुआ है. That
Yeah,
means
so
they came
in this,
left.
yeah, that's it. So in this case, I can also skip this column because this is the column which I'm more interested in, and this is probably in days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, now this is the most important column. So I'm taking this, so let me just put it as green. This is the most important. Okay, we'll take the break at 7 o'clock. Okay, is it fine?
सही है.
Maghrib की azan हो गई, but we'll take the break as 7 o'clock. So yeah, so this is okay, this is okay. Age. Now what to do with age? So I can't use age like this.
So इसके आगे भी age पड़ा हुआ है. इसमें ना exact age लिखी हुई है. So we can skip this and we go to the next page.
लेकिन I think we can skip तो हम कर सकते हैं, लेकिन what we can do is कि अगर हम इसके values check करें, so we can replace these values by string values if we want to consider that as age. Okay?
ये string ये object में आती है वैसे भी.
जी ये object ही आएगा, लेकिन मैं कह रहा हूँ कि as they have already done the categorization, so we can replace them by, for example, greater than 80 is old, very old आप कह लें, greater than 70 old, greater than 60 somewhat old, some like that. Or I can merge greater than 70 and greater than 80 as old. I can also merge that. So this might
वो भी बनाया हुआ है into 4 quadrants भी किया हुआ है.
अच्छा 0 to 60 and greater than 60, greater than 70, greater than 80. So that is the 4 quadrants that they have done.
वो आगे ने अलग किया भी है. तो this becomes like a double thing that.
I think we should not ignore this right now. Let's just let it be. Okay.
I use this column. It will be very useful in the presentation.
This could be important because इन्होंने 60, 70, 80 को they have separated that probably because of the fact कि I need to the old age does affect the death rate in COVID, right? The older you are, the more chances that you're going to die. So they want to understand the pattern across 60, 70, 80. Okay, so it's a good discretization to have. Maybe we can understand it in that way. Okay. Okay, now severity. So severity is, let's see what they have filtered.
0 to 11 scale है.
So that's pretty good. एक second जरा please hold कीजिएगा एक second. So severity is also important because I think let's see you see 7 severity is death. But 9 severity is not death. So it's not clear. So we have to find out the correlation between severity and death. The death is a binary variable. So what is in onward basis? So okay, so that's from God, right? Okay, you might have a very severe case of COVID, but you did not die because of that. It's quite possible. For example, this guy had 7 and he died, and this guy had 7 and he survived. So it's okay. Although this was okay, both of them were more than 80 years old. So this is from God basically. But we need to understand the pattern, right? We need to understand the correlation between these columns in a good way. Okay. Acha, black and white, Asian and Latino. I think it will be better if we merge these 4 columns into just one column, which is the race, and put it as string. Do you understand? I just have one column which is race. So I'll just tell you what I mean here. So I will say race. Okay. So in this case, the race is what? No race. So neither black nor white nor Asian nor Latino. Then who is he? So maybe Chinese. So Chinese is Asian. Others. Okay. Others में कर लें इसको, ठीक है. In this case, we have white, so we'll do this white. In this case, again, I have white. In this case, I have black. In this case, also have black, and so on. You see, most of them must be white, I think, whites or blacks, because that's what happens in America. Okay, so I think rather than doing black, white, Asian, Latino separately, it creates too much data. What I'll do is I will just delete these columns after creating the race column, or I will just hide them from my analysis. Do you understand? So I will not be using these 4 columns because, sorry about that. Because the point is the race might be important. It's okay, it's important for me, but this data is in this form basically for machine learning. If you want to use the data for machine learning, as you will discover in the next semester, inshallah, you have to put this data in this format, so it becomes more easy for things like random forest to learn your model. Okay, if you are doing machine learning. So, but when you are doing data wrangling, then data wrangling ke andar, this does not really it does not really add up for us. So it's better to have as one string column, which I can, because when I have a string column, then I can use chi-square test, and I can use the Anova test to basically understand the kya kehte hain usko. I can compare race with, for example, length of stay. Okay, Anova करके देख लेते हैं कि which race has significantly more length of stay than the other races. If you want to do Anova, and if there is some other string column, then I can also create a I can create some more string columns, and I can compare race with those through a chi-square test. समझ में आ रही बात की? So data wrangling में our mindset is different. Okay. And in the machine learning and BI, our mindset is different. So I will create this column, and I will not be using this. So you can create a script in Python in which you can just see के यार ये जिसमें भी 1 आ रहा है वो value उठा के यहाँ लिख दो, और अगर सारे 0 आ रहे हैं तो उसको others में लिख दो. You can just create one function to do that, or you can get someone to do it, and that will be fine. For example, in this case, I will write Latino. And in this case, I will write again white, and so on and so forth. Okay. So Asians, I think, are the minimum. You see, all are rather kuch hi Asians hain jo ke jinko hua hai, because Asians are typically more, if I don't know, they are more immune. They have a higher immunity level. So now, so typically in the companies, ऐसी situation आ सकती है कि you might not be knowing, the IT guys even might not be knowing the meaning of the column names, because what happens is the database is created like 3 or 4 years ago, or 6 or 7 years ago. Someone creates a database, someone creates the tables in Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL, and he or she creates the column names, but there is no data dictionary. There is no data dictionary कि किस column के name का मतलब क्या. जैसे for example यहाँ लिखा हुआ MI. What does MI mean? It's a binary value, right? MI का क्या मतलब है? So it's basically, it could be myocardial infraction. Yeah, that's MI. So whether he or she has myocardial infraction. So in order to understand this better, so I can just do it something like this. Is it like this, right? Myo. myoinfection, something like this, to make it much better understandable. Okay. और उसके बाद PVD है, peripheral vascular disease. Then you have CHF, which is congestive heart failure, cardiovascular disease, dementia. COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. DM simple. Okay, so DM complicated and DM simple. Renal disease, but is all CNS. Okay, so in this case, what we can do is कि अब देखें ना, ये वो चीज़ है जहाँ पे हमें डॉक्टर्स की जरूरत है. Like we can ask them कि यार बंदा मर रहा है, ठीक है, the person died, so we are analyzing the data, तो please tell us कि out of all these lab tests जो कि आपने करवाए, which are the ones which are more critical for your analysis, which are more correlated according to your experience with COVID complications. So definitely the doctor, the pulmonologist will be able to tell you. Out of these, we believe that these are the parameters which are more important. Okay? So in this case, for me, for example, all of these are important because this is the heart related and the dementia, pulmonary. So now I can merge these two columns. DM complicated and DM simple. I can merge these two columns. So I can create के DM का मतलब क्या था? Dementia. Okay.
Sir, एक और idea हो सकता है.
Diabetes. Okay, diabetes. Okay, that's very important. So I can just say diabetes, and I will again say diabetes 0. So no diabetes here, no diabetes, no. This is अगर 1 है, तो just put it 1 here. I'm not interested कि diabetes उसका ज़्यादा है या कम है. I just want to know कि whether उसका diabetes है या नहीं है, because I want to make my analysis simple, right? This can, if you want to analyze deeply, then this can be done in a BI chart. The complicated goes in a different in a different page of the BI report, and simple goes in a different page. So I will not use these two columns together. It's creating confusion for me. Okay, sorry about that.
एक तरीका हो सकता है कि what if you just to count the amount of diseases there are, and if you treat them all, for example, have equal effect on the person living or death, and we just say, okay, for example, person who survived ends up having, for example, out of 6, 3 of them. So we can just count like how many of these checklists of diseases the person got, and based on that, we can do some sort of like analysis based on the numerical count of how many they have.
Yes, I think that's a good strategy, but I think first of all we should look at the individual columns to understand the data better. You know, that's what I'm saying. This is the part which is missing. I was talking to one teacher recently, और मैंने उनसे बात की machine learning के बारे में. So we're talking about machine learning. तो उन्होंने मुझे ये कहा कि machine learning तो ये होती है कि सारा डेटा उठा के एल्गोरिथम को दे दो and just look at the result. So I got a bit uncomfortable about that definition, right? कि you might be right? But I think this kind of thing is done in deep learning. ठीक है? और deep learning के अंदर भी, if I am working with images, right? So I do some sort of image processing before I give the data to the deep learning algorithm, like a convolution neural network. It's not that कि मैं data को तस्वीर खींची और मैंने deep learning को दे दिया. इस तरह नहीं होता. So even in deep learning, I have to do pre-processing. आप हैरान होंगे इस बात पे. I'm working with a PhD student on time series forecasting. So we are using a deep learning model for time series forecasting. We are making changes in that, right? We are trying to discover a new technology. And when you do time series forecasting, then basically what you have to do is you have to ensure that your data is stationary. Okay, stationary means it's that something like this. The mean of your time series remains the same almost throughout the time. The mean data of your time series is almost the same. The standard deviation is almost the same. So we have to make the series stationary. So what we thought कि हम सोच रहे थे कि यार ये deep learning तो इतनी कमाल की चीज है, ठीक है? हम stationary, we make the data stationary when we basically use a simple model like ARIMA model to forecast the time series, right? Which is being used for the last 50, 60 years to forecast time series and still being used. तो हम ये सोच रहे थे कि यार ये तो उसमें इस्तेमाल होगा, ठीक है? लेकिन what we found out was कि when we did not make the time series stationary and gave it to the deep learning algorithm, our results were not good, although it was deep learning, okay? And it was supposed to do very good than the traditional ARIMA. But the moment we did the pre-processing, when we did the wrangling, we converted the time series, we transformed the time series, we did this, make the series stationary. And then we gave it to the deep learning algorithm. Immediately, there was a very good increase in the accuracy of the forecast. I got surprised. मैं तो समझ रहा था कि यार deep learning should be able to handle the non-stationarity of my times, but it did not do that. Even we were using a very complicated deep learning model, it did not do that. So in this way, I'll tell you that it's very important for you, first of all, to understand each column separately. So we'll go through this quickly, okay? So that to keep this in mind. So this is a one-time activity. This is a one-time activity, and this can be facilitated if the IT department has a data dictionary in place. If there is no data dictionary, then frankly, it is going to be very difficult for the data analysis team to understand the data in the first place. So they are going to be making assumptions, और उनकी assumptions गलत भी हो सकती हैं, right? So therefore, we have to be very careful. So renal disease for me is also important. So I'll just say I will go with that. All CNS, let me check the, I don't have the value for the all CNS. So all CNS does not seem to me, okay, they have not, so I don't have the business knowledge for that, okay? So I'll not use it. Pure CNS, so I can, I can look up through this in the data dictionary, or I can use Google, but right now I don't want to do that. Whether the person had a stroke, this is of high importance. Seizure also importance. Old syncope. So I'll just, I think I will just skip this. Okay. So old other neuro, if you have any other neuro problems. So I'll just skip this as well. Other BRNR, SLR, no. Age is important. Age score. Now what is that? This is, अच्छा, इसमें मैं आपको बात बता दूं कि in the medical domain, they already have some sort of classifications in place. So I think ये जो scoring है, that is according to that classification. So you can see कि 72 is 2, 94 is 3, 89 is 3. So maybe greater than 80.
Quadrants हैं.
Yeah, so
0 to 3 basically.
So I will use them. ठीक है, अभी मैं इनको नहीं करूँगा. O2 SATs, yes. I think this is the saturation level. So just let me check. Yeah. O2 SATs is the saturation level, yes?
O2 SAT, yes. मतलब मुझे समझ आया था कि it means कि they took that reading, फिर उसके बाद फिर oxygen saturation आती है और फिर उसका threshold आता है. अगर आप देखें ना ये.
So what about this 094? What does that mean?
Probably they didn't take the reading when they admitted the person.
If they did not take the reading, then how they have the value?
Yes, that is the question. Because इसके बाद value आती है, उसके बाद उसकी threshold आती है, whether it's going above or below certain medical requirement.
Okay, so I think I can skip this column. Okay, I don't need too many columns for there are two stats, right? OS sats and O2 sat. It's less than 9.
हमें less than वाला चाहिए because that tells us के whether it's above a certain threshold or not.
So I can even delete this, okay? But I will let it remain if I want to find a correlation with any other numerical column. So I will let both of these remain. Temp yes is the temperature. So temperature greater than 38. So whether he had the temperature. So this is important. And so yeah, so I can skip this one. So जैसे मैंने OS के अंदर ये दोनों रहने दिए, I think this should be O2, right? This might be O2. So temp is greater than 3, and okay, map. What is map? Map value, map less than 70. I think it's the map is the average pressure or something like that. Yeah, mean arterial pressure. Oh, so this is important. So I will just skip this one, and I will take these two. You can see okay, there is a trend now that is coming up. So I can simply skip this and take this D dimer. So basically, it's a good thing that they are giving you the ideal values. If less than 70, that is dangerous. If it is greater than 38, that is dangerous. D dimer is greater than 3, then that is dangerous. So I have both of these. So PLTS, yes, again, I can skip this and let me check what is PLTS. Okay, platelet count, that is very important. That is extremely important. 137 means that less than, I think we should have minimum 150. I think it should be 150 here, right? Yeah, you see above 158 is 0, but less than 150, I think is 1. So that is dangerous, right? You see 126. So because mera bhi abhi yahi hua tha na, I just got that. I got the viral, and for that I had the platelet count 110. So the doctor said maybe it's dengue. It's not COVID, but maybe it's dengue. Again, Allah ka shukar hai, I got 217 after 2 days. So I was Allah ka shukar hai. So INR, what is INR? International normalized ratio. Wow. So again, I can skip this one and let these two remain. ये देखें मैं अभी एक पहले लेवल पे चल रहा हूँ. You see how much time I have to spend on this one. I'm just going at the first level. I'm just removing those columns which are not important for me. Bun. What is that, man? Blood, urea, nitrogen. That is pretty important. Okay. So I can skip this one. Other is string. CRTN is what is that, man? CRTN, creatinine. Okay, creatinine. That is also important. And sodium level, that is also important. So we'll see how to deal with this. Glucose क्या है? Sugar level होता है ना?
Yes, sir.
Glucose. So that is important. AST is alanine aminotransferase. So I will assume that AST is typically not important for me right now. Okay, I'll just skip that. ALT is what? ALT का यहाँ पे information given नहीं है. I will also skip this. Okay, white blood cell, that is extremely important. Less than 1.8. Lymphocytes होगा ये. Lympho, yes, lympho, that is also important. ILS6. So that is interleukin 6. सारा लिखा तो हुआ है यहाँ पे यार. आप लोग कहते लिखा ही कुछ नहीं है. Interleukin 6. So interleukin 6, I don't know what is that. So I'll just skip this right now. Okay. Because I have some knowledge के doctors यहाँ पर के ferritin is probably something to do with the iron level. So let's let's use that. CRCT. CRCT यहाँ पे लिखा नहीं हुआ, but I can just I can assume that that is important. Okay. Or just so एक minute. CRCT protein. C reactive protein greater than 10. So this might be important. Okay, protein level. Pro-calcium, right? Pro-calcitron. This could be important as well. So we can do that. And finally, we are on to this troponin. So just let me check this troponin first of all. Troponin levels. So there are a group of proteins found in skeletal and heart muscle fibers. So troponin is also. So now, अब देखें हमने we spent just 15 to 20 minutes, ठीक है, and we removed just this ILS6, ठीक है. If you want, you can. I mean, आप चाहें तो आप इसको ले लें, but currently let's skip this. हम बाद में इसको शामिल भी कर सकते हैं. So all the other columns which I have drawn, I've selected are important for me. Okay. So I'll just ये मैंने उनको color scheme एक दे दी है, और in Python you will have to separate them obviously before you can use them. Okay. So just let me put that as green ताकि हमारी बाद में इसकी confusion ना हो. Okay. So Excel is pretty good for this kind of things if the data is not that much. So Excel के अंदर you can do that, but I will prefer कि आप सारा काम Python में करें, because then you will be able to automate that. In Excel you can't automate unless you record a macro. Okay, and recording a macro is not, I mean, it's not a very standard practice in Excel. It's difficult. Everyone does not do it, recording the macro. And what if your data gets updated? Then what? So controlling things in Python is much more easier than in this. So now we have 7 o'clock. I think we can take a break for 10 minutes and then kindly come back. Okay. सही है?
जी सर.
हाँ, तो 10 मिनट में आ जाएं. Okay. So now what we have done is that we have basically, first of all, the first step to do is to have the business knowledge. Okay. In any business problem, whether it is telecom or healthcare or financial problem or insurance problem, whatever business domain you're from, you must be having some sort of a business problem, a business question that you want to get investigated, because all the top level managements are actually interested in increasing their revenues, and that means that you have to understand your customers first of all. So there are lots and lots of business questions that you can generate. If the business needs to be very clear on the questions. For example, in this case, we are absolutely clear that we have to understand the people who died. Why did they die? What were the symptoms due to which they lost their life in COVID? And the people who survived, why did they survive? What were the symptoms, or what were their lab test result values which are associated with people who are surviving? So that's a very interesting research question that we have, because that is going to help the doctors treat the patients in a better way the next time the COVID patients come in, So the doctors are not going to do this analysis at all. This is a complicated analysis to do. That is why they put this on Kaggle, so you can get the data science. So now the first step is to, abhi jab hum wo presentation dekhenge, to you will understand that there is something else to do as well. But the first step in this case, when you don't have any missing values, etc., is to single out those columns jo ki aapke interest ke nahi hai. Okay. So now we want to write down how we are going to analyze it. We want to write it down. Okay. So that's the important thing. So let me see if I can, I don't know whether I should use this. Okay, so I'll write it down here. Yeah. So now where to start? A1. What should be my first analysis? Okay, so now I think that this will not work. I will write it down, I think, on the chat. Okay. So what should be my first analysis is what I need to determine. So I know, for example, what is the most important variable? That is, for me, what is the most important variable? And for me, that is death. Okay. So the people who died versus the people who did not die. Okay. So अब इसमें एक तरीका तो ये है कि I separate the data in Python. I separate the data for patients who died and did not die, or I let it remain as it is. But what I want to do is to distinguish the lab test results based on death and not death. Okay. So how to do that? So let's see. I have the data for death. So people who died versus who did not die. And I have their length of stays. So the death is actually a binary column, right? True or false. So how to associate this with if you have to, I don't know whether the correlation will work in this case like we did for Anova. Yeah. Okay. हाँ, तो पहली चीज ये है कि I will treat the death as a string variable. Okay, so I'll just write this down. Treat death क्या हो रहा है यार? Okay, so treat the death as a string variable. Okay, so I know that okay, so there are probably no missing values here, so everything is fine as far as that. So मुझे मालूम है कि I can find out using the Anova test. Using the Anova test, I can find out whether there is any significant difference across a KPI for the people who died and did not die. Okay, so what I mean to say is that I have the data, this one died and this one did not die. So I have this whole data here. So if I have some other numerical column like length of stay, okay, so I can find out whether there is any significant difference between the length of stay, average length of stay for the people who did not die and the people who died. ये तो ANOVA का usage तो याद है ना आपको? What does ANOVA do? ANOVA does this, right? It helps you basically. The null hypothesis is there is no significant difference between the length of stay of patients who died and patients who did not die. That is the null hypothesis. Alternate is there is a significant difference in the length of stay between those patients who died and did not die. सही है? तो पहला जो टेस्ट है, although it's a bivariate test, but because I'm talking about the death variable, so you can say that the first thing is I do the frequency histogram for death. Okay, so I can just frequency distribution, you can say, for death. So how many people died and how many people did not die. Simple. इसको आप देख लें. So it will help us understand, okay, 50% people died and 50% people survived. But the next thing is to do an ANOVA. In my case, is death versus LOS. That is the first one. And again, the most important data in your the most important columns in your data are always the numerical columns. Okay, so what are the numerical columns we have? We have LOS. Okay, what others we have? Let's see. We have the severity. So I can do death versus LOS. I can do death versus severity. I can find out the average severity. All of these will help me understand के death versus non-death में क्या हो रहा है. ठीक है? So I have severity. I don't have this. So now all of these are binary variables. So when I have the binary variable, then I can't do much with respect to ANOVA, because in ANOVA I do not know. हाँ, इसमें तो chi-square test आ जाएगा, binary versus binary. All of these are binary. So let me check for values which are okay. So we have the age and the age score. So we can take one of them. Okay, so I'm more interested in age, like death. So we can do both if we want. Okay, death versus age. Because you see, age score जो है ना, age score is actually a binary. It's not a binary. It's also a string value, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. It's not actually a numerical variable like we have age and sales and customer density and patient number of patients like that. It's not a score like that. It's not a numerical variable like that. It's not actually a KPI. समझ में आ रही बात की? It's more of a categorization, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So हम इसको string लेंगे. ठीक है, हम इसको स्ट्रिंग लेंगे और बाद में हम इसको chi-square टेस्ट के थ्रू डेथ से कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. ओके, सो दैट्स डेथ वर्सेस एज. इसी तरह आई कैन हैव डेथ वर्सेस O2 sats. ओके, एंड सिमिलरली O2 sats, और भी मैं कह सकता हूँ टेम्परेचर भी आप कर लें इसके अंदर. ठीक है, तो मीन टेम्परेचर हाउ मच इट इज वेरिंग, आप मैप भी कर लें. ऑल दोज वेरिएबल जो हमने मैप किए हैं जिसमें you know these are numerical values like D dimer, I have D dimer, PLDS, platelet count. So INR भी आप इसमें चाहें तो आप you can put the INR as well. We have the bun, we have creatinine. बस मैं ये एनालिसिस तो आपको इतना कुछ बता देगा कि मैं क्या बताऊं. I mean, we have the glucose level. This is going to make a very clear distinction how patients who are dying and who are surviving, what is happening to these lab test results. Okay, you will be able to see a clear distinction, and you will be able to understand that the people who are dying, okay, have a significant difference over these lab test variables from the people who are not dying. Okay, and you will also know whether the difference is more or less. So this is CRCT, okay, whatever, procalcitron. And then we have troponin. So now, because that's the main thing. Death is a serious thing, right? So this ANOVA test is going to tell me very, very clearly, okay, for example, in this case, death versus LOS, the death versus LOS. Okay, so this is going to tell me very clearly what is the average LOS of patient who die and the average LOS of patients who do not die, and whether there is any significant difference. जहां पे significant difference होगा वहां पर हम surety के साथ कह सकते हैं कि यार जो लोग मर रहे हैं वो इस वजह से मर रहे हैं. If there is no significant difference between any lab test value across the death and non-death, then we can say, yeah, I cannot distinguish based on this lab test result कि person का ये value होगी तो मर जाएगा और नहीं value होगी तो नहीं मरेगा. ठीक है? Is this thing clear? So you have to conduct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 ANOVA tests in the first thing that we have to do to understand why people are dying. What is the reason for the people who are dying? And the people who are dying, what are their parameters as compared to people who are not? So ANOVA is going to give you confidence that there is a significant difference. There is a significant difference of the values across the people who are dying and not dying. सही है अभी तक clear है? Is this thing clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is the first thing that we do. So ये वो 12 टेस्ट हैं जो आपको करने चाहिए थे. I don't know कि वो आपने किए कि नहीं किए. अच्छा, अब हम आगे आते हैं. What else can we do across death? Death के across, what else can we do? So we took all the numerical variables, but we have a load of other variables which are not numerical. Okay, so death is for me a string variable. Okay, so I'll just mark that as a string. So it's more at true and false. Okay, so it's a string variable. So I took the data for death across the numerical. I can also take string across string. So as a chi-square test. So let me ask you because age को तो अभी छोड़ दें आप क्योंकि age हमने आगे कर लिया तो age का हमें पता चल जाएगा. Severity we have already done. So let me ask you, is the myoinfraction. Myoinfraction is also a string variable, not a binary. We call that a string or true and false. Okay, so let me ask you, if I am comparing death versus myo, what is my null hypothesis? तो कौन सा टेस्ट मैं इस्तेमाल करूंगा? To compare them, what test can I use? Two string values.
T-test.
No. Chi-square test, right? I will use the chi-square test to compare two string values. What is my null hypothesis? Shabash.
So the average number of so the number of people who have there will be no difference in the age of the people who have a myocardial disease or who have no myocardial disease.
Yeah, so null hypothesis is that having a myocardiac infection has no effect on the death or the survival of a COVID patient. Okay, that's the null hypothesis. The alternate hypothesis that having a myocardiac infection has a significant impact on whether the person survives or does not survive. That's a lot of information. If you are look, if अगर आप BI tool लेते हैं, BI tool में आप क्या करेंगे, आप डेथ को मायोकार्डिक इन्फेक्शन के क्रॉस फ्रीक्वेंसी काउंट्स के क्रॉस प्लॉट कर देंगे स्कैटर के ऊपर. That's what you're going to do. But that is not true, right? Because unless the statistical test tells you that there is a significant correlation, then you can plot the scatter plot according to their frequency counts. Frequency counts का मतलब है 0 कितनी दफा इकट्ठे आया है, 1 कितनी दफा इकट्ठे आया है, 0 कितनी दफा इकट्ठे आया है, 1 कितनी दफा इकट्ठे आया है. So I can make those frequency counts in a contingency table. So what I can have here is that I can have death here. So death has value 0, 1. And I can have myocardiac infection here. So it has value 0, 1. So let's say the 0, 0 combination is there, like maybe 234 times. 0, 1 is there, let's say 1000 times. Okay. And this is there, let's say 2000 times, 2K times. And let's say this is there 3000. So this is like maybe 800 times, something like that. Okay, so we make a contingency table, and based on this contingency table, we run a chi-square test. So मैं इसकी detail में नहीं जा रहा, but I'm just telling you that the chi-square test is used to find out the correlation between two string variables, right? So that is a lot of information. So if I write this on chat, so chat के अंदर I'm doing chi-squared. So chi-squared में I will do death versus what? Death versus race. I mean, death versus race is not high priority for me because telling to someone कि यार गोरे ज़्यादा मर रहे हैं, काले कम मर रहे हैं या काले ज़्यादा मर रहे हैं, that is not the that is sort of a demographic information that I can give towards the end. That sorts of ethnic information. More important is कि यार जो लोग मर रहे हैं वो क्यों मर रहे हैं? Why they are dying? That's the question that we have to answer. So for that, I can have this all these variables: death versus race, myocardiac infection, PVD, CHF, CVD, dementia, all those जिनको मैं all the binary variables here or the Boolean variables here, I can convert them to a string and I can find out the chi-square test. And that is definitely going to give me a lot of information. That is going to basically the ANOVA and the chi-square are going to answer my queries definitely. Inshallah, ke why the people are dying. जो लोग मर रहे हैं उनके test क्या हैं? But if whenever you see a significant difference in the lab test values for ANOVA versus chi-squared, for chi-squared में death versus non-death, or ANOVA में death versus non-death, if there is a significant difference, the p-value is going to be less than 5%, and you're going to making a claim that this is the true for the whole population. That's what's happening in the patient. So that's the thing that you need to do. So just let me write these down. There are not many, right? So renal disease, stroke, seizure. You basically cover everything: renal disease, stroke, seizure here, because you don't have the file, so that's why I'm writing it. Age हमने already कर लिया है. O2. अब देखें, हाँ, अब यहाँ पे पॉइंट ये है कि we did across O2 sats, right? O2 sats के क्रॉस हम already कर चुके हैं ANOVA के अंदर. Do we need to do this for this binary variable or not? Because this is telling me whether it is critical or not.
I think we need to.
Okay, we need to, because both of these things are going to give me different information. Although I think the chi-squared one is much more important, because they are defining, for example, I can say true or false here, right? So this is much more important because it is telling me if it is true, then it is dangerous. So my null hypothesis is that there is no a dangerous level of O2 saturation has nothing to do with the person dying or living. And the alternate hypothesis is a dangerous level of O2 saturation has everything to do with the person's death or person's life. दैट वो पे p वैल्यू आपको बताएगी कि ये चीज सही है कि नहीं. So similarly, you can this analysis will basically augment your analysis of ANOVA for the same variable. आपको दो अलग-अलग चीजें समझ में आ सकती हैं. You get some sort of more information. So in this way, जितने भी दूसरे variables हैं जिसके अंदर we did all those, जिसके अंदर I'll just copy these here, dimer and all this, because हर एक के अंदर ना वो भी है और ये भी है. So I'll just copy these here. Oh, sorry about that. I can't seem to copy.
Sir, I just want to reconfirm that after doing the test, after applying the test, we need to make a regression plot or scatter plot.
No. देखें, ये जो अभी तो आ रहे हैं उस पे भी हम आ रहे हैं. अभी तो हम सिर्फ right now we just want to understand के why the people are dying. So through these 10 or 12 ANOVA and 10 or 12 chi-square test, we are going to get lots and lots of information already that why the people are dying. Wherever the p value is less than 0.5%, we can make the conclusion. यहाँ तक तो clear है ना?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Okay, so for the case of ANOVA, let's say I get something like this as a result: death versus LOS. Okay, so I'm doing ANOVA. So it shows me ke death mein LOS has the average value of, let's say, 7.6 days. Or living mein, I mean, the person survived, LOS has an average value of 4.3 days. Okay, and the p value is less than or equal to 0.05. So what is the conclusion that you can make? Tell me with respect to null hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis. G, what is the conclusion?
So null hypothesis is that the average number of stay will be same for death as well as for the living people. And alternative hypothesis, there is a dependency of length of stay on a number of deaths. Okay, death people. So if our p value is smaller than 5%, we are going to reject the null hypothesis and we accept the alternate hypothesis. Means the length of the stay have definitely dependency on the.
हाँ तो ठीक है, I accept the alternate hypothesis. लेकिन what statement can you make with confidence now?
So length of stay has no relationship with death, maybe.
No relationship.
It has a relationship with the death, and it would be like the people.
Longer the stay, the threshold high.
It is.
We can say the average length of the stay of 7.6 days. They might die from this virus.
Yes.
हाँ ये देखें, हाँ ये हो सकता है, लेकिन to make it more easy to understand, you can make a statement के the people who are dying, ठीक है, the people who are dying are expected to have an almost double length of stay in the hospital as compared to people who are surviving. एक तो ये statement है, and I can say that this is true for the whole population, so I can state that with confidence because the p value, the chances of an error is less than 5% in making a claim about the whole population. So there is a significant relationship of LOS as far as the survival rate of patient is concerned. कि मैं ये confidence के साथ कह सकता हूँ कि जो लोग हॉस्पिटल में ज्यादा देर रुक रहे हैं या तकरीबन 8 दिन रुक रहे हैं, उनके डेथ का चांस ज्यादा है as compared to those people who are just staying there for 4 days or 3 or 4 days. And if I find out the average LOS, for example, let me find out the average LOS. So let me find out the average. So average LOS is 7.1 days. ठीक है. So अब मैं आपको एक और statement देता हूँ. The same case. तो अगर मैं कहता हूँ कि death में आपका LOS आ रहा है 12.3 days. आई डोंट नो क्या आता है कि नहीं आता, वो आपको अनोवा टेस्ट बताएगा। और सर्वाइवल में आ रहा है लेट्स से कि 6.8 days, ठीक है, एंड द एवरेज LOS equals to 7.3 days whatever, and the p value is less than 5%. Now what? अब बताएं। wait a minute, let me ask myself जी, रजा बाकिर आप बताइए।
सर नो आइडिया सर जी।
नो आइडिया? भाई ये देखें, रैंगलिंग का कोर्स खत्म होने को है, तो प्लीज लिसन टू माय लास्ट लेक्चर अगेन and listen to this lecture again. It's very very important to understand this infer analysis. आपको ये तो पता है ना कि अनोवा टेस्ट तो समझ में आई है ना?
Yes sir.
हाँ, तो if you understand अनोवा, रजा मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ,
सर अभी भी सर थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन है अनोवा में।
तो अनोवा में basically what is happening is के I have one variable which is string, okay? एक string variable है, it has different categories. I have another variable which is numerical in nature. I am interested in finding out whether ये जो string में different आपके पास values हैं, इनके across average value of this column, does it change or not? For example, I can have 3 product categories, P1, P2, P3, and this is the sales data. So I am trying to understand whether the sales, average sales is significantly different across the product groups. ठीक है, तो in ANOVA I have one string variable and I have one numerical variable. Or what I want to understand is कि across those string values, whether the average value of the numerical column is different or not. ठीक है, like for example in this case I have the string variable death or life, death or survival. So that's the string variable, and the LOS is basically the numerical variable, and I want to understand whether there is any significant difference in the length of stay of those patients who die and those patients who survive. So ANOVA test is telling me if the p value is less than 5%, then this means that there is a very very significant difference between the length of stay of patients who die and who survive. So in this case, the analysis is that the people who die are expected to stay in the hospital for more than 10 days or more than 12 days. Okay? So if someone crosses 10 days, then this is an indication that that person might be dying. Okay, he could survive, but it could be an indication that he could go towards death, because that's what the data is telling us. And this is much more than the average length of stay that we have, which is just 7 days. So if I can also say if someone crosses 7 days, then he or she is in danger. So now I can, through the statistical test, I can be more confident about this. I can be more confident about what I'm saying, rather than just calculating the average and telling that on a BI chart. रज़ा बाकी अब थोड़ा समझ में आया?
जी सर।
देखें, you need to, all of you need to understand this inferential testing. I will recommend you strongly to kindly please listen to my previous lecture as well as this lecture to get the purpose of this. You know, कि जिनको समझ में आ गया है वो तो, all of you are very, you must be happy and you must feel lucky about it, because as far as I am concerned, in this data, I can make a prediction about the mortality based on all these variables. मैं prediction कर सकता हूँ, लेकिन I am more interested in understanding कि why people are dying rather than making a prediction कि यार ये कब मरेगा या नहीं मरेगा. ठीक है? If I understand, then I can treat the patient in a better way. So that's the thing. Okay, so it seems to me that still you guys need some hands-on knowledge. So maybe it would be a good exercises to revisit this problem and do these things again. Okay, so up to now we have done 2 types of analysis. एक तो हमने किया है ANOVA of death variable, across all the numerical variables. दूसरा हमने किया है chi-squared of death across all the other string variables. ठीक है? So let me ask you the result regarding chi-squared. ठीक है, मैं अभी आपको ये पूछता हूँ. So let's say कि my chi-squared result is कि death में I do the death versus let's say mayo infection. ठीक है? Or p value is less than 5%. What is my conclusion? G, what is my conclusion?
So null hypothesis is rejected.
Null hypothesis is rejected. So what is the alternate hypothesis?
Who have myocardial disease will going to die.
हाँ, अब उसको ऐसा ना बोलें कि अगला बंदा परेशानी हो जाए. It might not always be the case कि इसको हाँ, you are right, basically saying the right thing, but you can put it in this way कि having a myocardiac infection, ठीक है, could नहीं, having a myocardiac infection will definitely have an impact on whether you are going to survive or die. ठीक है? Having a myocardiac infection is definitely going to have an impact on whether you are going to die or whether you're going to survive. What is the impact? Do myocardiac patients, do MI patients actually survive or do they actually die? So you can compute that from the data. कि majority क्या है? ठीक है? When you make the table, when you make this table, for example, के जिसके अंदर let's say कि I have here 0. So for example, here I have death. नहीं, मैं इसको इस तरह करता हूँ कि true and false and death and survived. Okay, so let's say कि those who died true, or I have 4,000 rows, right? So let's say कि I have 2,000 people here and I have let's say 500 people here, and again let's say I have 500 people here, so that is 3,000, and then I have the remaining 1,700 people here. Okay, and my p value comes out to be 5%. That means the alternate is true. क्या conclusion इधर आएंगे आप? I know that there is a correlation that those who have a myocardiac infection, it does have an impact on whether you are going to die or not die. So what is the frequencies? What are the frequencies telling you?
So chances are more.
Yeah, you can see कि बिल्कुल सही कहा है आपने कि when I have 2,000, when I have myocardic infection, so I have more chances of dying as compared to surviving. And when I don't have it, I have more chances of surviving as compared to dying. So that means that if I have myocardic infection, then I'm more likely to do what?
Die.
Yes, that is the game. So if a COVID patient has a length of stay which is greater than 10 days, उसके 10 दिन हो गए हैं और उसको myocardiac infection भी है, so you start to feel more confident that this guy might pass out, right? In this way, if I gather information across so many other analysis जो मैंने किए हैं, so I will know definitely कि जहाँ पे wherever the value is less than 5%, wherever the value is less than 5%, I will know definitely for sure कि that person is going to die. सही है कि मुझे उसकी chances का बहुत ज़्यादा, and this is what most of the doctors who are more experienced doctors, जो पिछले लेट्स से के पिछले 10 साल से एक बीमारी को देख रहे हैं या जब से कोविड आया है, सो दे लुकिंग एट कोविड, ओके, सो they will have a very clear idea of these trends in their mind, but they might not have an idea across all the possible variables. In this case, we are doing at least 20 to 25 different types of analysis, and for every analysis we have a very clear idea of how much that is associated with that death. उसके अंदर बहुत सी चीजें ऐसी आएंगी जिसमें p value 10% से ज्यादा है. We'll just ignore that. That's not our concern. If it is less than 10% or preferably less than 5%, then we can make the conclusion. So in this way, I understand so many things already about my data. Okay, is this thing clear?
Yes, sir.
अब आप मुझे बताएं कि चलो ये तो हो गए what we wrote on the chat. What about the other analysis? What else I can do? I got to know so much about the people who are dying and surviving. और मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ?
Age and no, sir, we can do a Anova test between age and death. That would be something very handy.
Yes, वो मैंने लिख दिया है. वो मैंने लिख दिया है.
अच्छा.
वो मैंने लिख दिया. वो भी करना होगा. ठीक, उससे भी पता चल जाएगा. बिल्कुल, you are right. You're absolutely right. That will be something handy. But अब Anova भी हो गए. Anova भी हो गए. chi-squared भी हो गए. I don't think so that we have any t-test issue here. We don't have a t-test situation here in which I need to compare the means. Because when we compare the means, it is comparison of means of the same quantity like we had in the marketing data. Marketing data mein I had the logins per 4 weeks and logins per 6 weeks. ऐसे ही था ना? Login per month and login per 6 months. So it's the same login. So when I have two variables of the same type, then I can do a t-test provided that they are numerical. In this case, there is no such situation. So t-test is not applicable. ये clear है बात? जी.
किसी one categorical and one numerical column. So for example, if we have one categorical column like severity and one numerical column like the values of the sodium, then we can apply the t-test between the severity and the sodium.
But both the columns must be associated with sodium levels then. क्योंकि देखें lab tests तो they are independent of each other. Like the sodium level has nothing to do with the white blood cell. What I want to say is कि मैं t-test सिर्फ उस वक्त करता हूँ जब दोनों columns एक ही quantity को measure कर रहे हों across different time intervals, for example. So if I am recording the for example, right now I am in September. I am recording the white blood cell count of all the COVID patients in September. And then I'm recording their WBCs in October. So I can do the t-test whether there is any significant difference between the mean value of the white blood cell. अगर significant difference आया है, and so I will compare के survival rate बढ़ा है कि नहीं, तो मैं कहूँगा कि yes, when the survival rate is increasing in 1 month, then I am sure के the WBC count is there is a difference between the WBC count. तो अगर मैं कहता हूँ सितंबर से अक्टूबर में लोग ज्यादा रिकवर कर गए हैं, तो I will say कि yes, improvement in WBC count is associated with the survival rate. So most of these things the doctors already know. So when you do a t-test, they have both the columns should measure the same quantity. I can't do a t-test between D dimer and WBC count. They don't have any correlation with each other. ये बात clear है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we did the Anova, we did the chi-squared. Now what? Let's forget about the death variable. So I can do the scatter, okay? So I have LOS and I have age. Should I make a scatter plot of these? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir, we can length of
But you know, this is extra information. This is not part of my business question. This might support extra information which might support the above analysis. So अगर मुझे ये बात मालूम है कि लेंथ ऑफ स्टे एज के साथ साथ कैसे वेरी कर रहा है थ्रू अ स्कैटर प्लॉट, we can make a scatter plot. That would be better. I can also make a correlation plot. I can make a scatter plot. I can make a correlation plot. ठीक है? Correlation plot is going to give correlation. मैंने बताया था ना आप लोगों को.
Yes, sir, -1 plus highly correlated with the value will be 1 and negatively correlated with the value will be -1.
So if I have something like this, so if this is age and this is length of stay, so let's say the graph is going like this. So the scatter plot is going like this. So what is this telling you? जी ये क्या कह रहा है आपको?
Positively correlated.
So no direct relation.
नहीं गलत बता रहे हैं भाई. आप गलत बता रहे हैं. What is this telling you? At the y-axis I have length of stay. At the x-axis I have age. What is this telling you?
So what we can do is we will mark the, so there is a relationship to it, and to find that out हम एक line बनाएंगे in the center.
When the age is increasing, what is happening to the length of stay?
It is increasing.
It's increasing.
So older patients have more chances of being admitted to the hospital for a longer time as compared to younger patients. Okay, so that's what we see from the graph.
Yes, sir.
But whether we want to understand कि whether there is a significant correlation or not. अभी तो हम कह रहे हैं कि हाँ correlation है, but we have not computed the correlation, right? So the correlation is computed by the Pearson value. I think I told you this. Pearson correlation. If the correlation is 0.5 greater than 0.5, correlation अगर 0.5 से ज़्यादा है, then we will say कि yes, age is correlated with LOS. We will be more confident about it. If the correlation is between 0 and 0.5, बल्कि between, okay, just let me write this down more properly. So we find correlation between age and LOS. Okay. If the value is between -1 से लेके, let's say -0.5. So I will say I have a negative correlation. What do you mean by negative correlation? G.
Inversely proportional.
Yes, so when the age is increasing, the LOS is decreasing. That's a negative correlation. If the correlation value is between -0.5 and 0.5, then I'm saying zero correlation. And if it is between 0.5 and 1, so what will I say?
Positive correlation.
Positive correlation. So normally you can compute the Pearson correlation by using the .cor function. That's called the Pearson correlation. It's just the .cor function in Python. ठीक है. So it can also give you heat maps. वो आपको heat map भी निकाल के दे देता है. So let me just see if so this is the correlation. Just let me. So here I just generate data from a normal distribution, that is series 1, and I generate another one. I just take this series and add some random numbers to it, so that's another series. These are the mean and standard deviations. If I plot the scatter, you can see, is this a positive correlation or a negative one?
Positive.
That's a positive one.
Yeah, so if series 1 is increasing, series 2 is also increasing. That's a positive correlation. Okay. This is the covariance. You don't need to worry about covariance. Actually, we will be worried about correlation. That's the Pearson correlation. Okay. So let me just execute this. So this is the Pearson function. You can import Pearson and call this as that Pearson R series 1, series 2. Okay. That's one way. You can also use the .cor function. So the Pearson correlation kitni aa rahi? 0.31. So it is less than 0.5, but we can p value is 0.000, that is significant, less than 5%. So but we can say कि यार अच्छा आ तो 0.3 रही है. 0.3 का मतलब है कितना कोई खास correlation है नहीं. But I can approximate this by a straight line. जितने points ऊपर होंगे उतने नीचे होंगे, तो the difference becomes clear. Okay. I can approximate this by a straight line. So I can say that there is a slightly positive correlation. Slightly positive correlation. So ये उस वक्त होता है जब डेटा आपका Gaussian हो, normal distribution follow करता हो, ठीक है? So I can also find out the Spearman correlation when the data is non-Gaussian. So Spearman correlation is 0.78. ठीक है? So let us do this more concrete example of house prices.
Sir, what's Gaussian?
जी कौन बताएगा?
Sir, पहले
Sale price. Who will tell me what is Gaussian का क्या मतलब है?
The normal distribution.
Yeah, the data is normally distributed. ठीक है? So I'm यहाँ मैं sale price देख रहा हूँ. Is this data normally distributed? जी. Is this data normally distributed?
Yes, sir. We can say somehow.
Yes, we can say that because it's sort of a skew here. ठीक है? This is the histogram, kind equals to histogram, dot hist function. This is more. Okay, this is what you call the correlation plot. The .cor से पूरा matrix आपको मिल जाता है. So what is happening is, look at the right side from -1 to 1, right? So the variable which is of most interest to me is the house price, the selling price of the house, right? So selling price of the house ka correlation color is here. So I want to understand that selling price of the house is negatively correlated with how many variables, okay? So can you interpret this line for me, please? Light color means very high correlation and dark, very dark means very low correlation. So can you please interpret this last line for me? Who will do it? Selling price is highly correlated with which variables?
Sir, ID, MMS, subclass, PSF, mu, and
Wrong.
all that.
Wrong.
Which have
Highly
with,
correlated. Highly correlated has a lighter color. See
Okay,
here.
all right. My bad, my bad. I said it's dark. I thought it's dark. Yeah, it has
सबसे light color
overall
किसका आ रहा है?
continued.
सबसे light color is
Sir,
this
orange.
variable.
Yeah,
Overall quality.
overall quality.
So the selling price is highly correlated with the overall quality. And this is also GR living area. What is GR living area? Garden. I think this is the garden area, right? These are light colors. उसके बाद garage cars. उसके बाद garage area. So the price of a house is positively correlated with whether you have a garage, whether you have this garden area, and what is the overall quality of the house. What about the negative correlations? Negatively किसके साथ correlated है?
Second floor,
MS subclass.
a second floor, SF
Enclosed portion.
Enclosed porch.
vortex, open
If you have
porch.
an enclosed porch, the price is going to go down, right? And this kitchen
Sir, what's
above
the name of this graph?
it's a correlation matrix, or you can say a correlation heat map. Kitchen above ground. So if the kitchen is above the ground, that is also negatively correlated. That is not something which is going to increase your price. So in this way, you can find out stuff about your plots, right? This is a basement half bath, something like that. So overall condition. So it's very strange. Overall quality has a positive correlation. Overall condition of the house, obviously, which is expected. If the quality is good, the condition is bad. If the condition is good, if the quality is good, the condition should be also good. But I think the overall condition is being there. There is no correlation between these two. I think we can search this. Let me see the overall quality. So overall quality, blah 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 blah. It does seem to have overall quality and overall condition. So this is a negative correlation for some reason. तो अब आप खुद सोच लें कि आप इस चार्ट से कितना कुछ समझ सकते हैं if you want to understand. Typically we do not make the chart like this के plot everything against everything else. That's not the way. That is the reason we are selecting the variables, because we only want specific variables in our analysis, which is the case for all possible analyses that we have.
Sir, I do have a question. अगर इस वाले असाइनमेंट में अगर हम एक हीट मैप ड्रॉ कर लें डेथ और जितने भी अगेंस्ट टेस्ट हैं, तो उसी में हमारे पास बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग ऑब्जर्वेशन आ जाएंगी.
that's you need to. हाँ बिल्कुल, देखें ज्यादा फायदा उस वक्त होगा दो न्यूमेरिकल वेरिएबल्स के क्रॉस करेंगे ना आप. Like the situation we were discussing right now is like age versus LOS. I don't know कि whether binary variables के cross इसका क्या आंसर होगा, आप करके देख लीजिएगा. Because if I have two binary variables में if I take that as numbers, so it does not make sense to do a correlation plot for binary variables. Do you understand?
All right. Yes sir.
हाँ, टेस्ट की जो वैल्यूज है ना, टेस्ट की वैल्यूज वो आप कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. टेस्ट की वैल्यूज वर्सेस एज और LOS. LOS can become the foundation variable for that, like the death was for the other cases. LOS can be compared with all the test values to understand ke people who are, because we know ke LOS has a strong correlation with the fact कि लोग मरेंगे कि नहीं मरेंगे. If that is if we already have that knowledge, then we can use that knowledge to basically find out other variables across LOS. So I'll just write this down. If I am able to determine that LOS is significantly, that the average LOS is significantly different for patients who die and who survive, इनका difference है, then LOS is highly correlated with, मतलब ये मैं अपने लॉजिकल अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए लिख रहा हूँ, with death. Now I can compare LOS across all other test values in a scatter and correlation matrix. समझ में आ रही बात की? I already know कि
सर एक सवाल है
जी.
अच्छा सर जो the values of the test, like we don't have a very deep understanding of the test. कि एक टेस्ट की वैल्यू अगर है तो बहुत बेहतर है, और एक टेस्ट की वैल्यू अगर बहुत स्मॉल होती है तो उसका इम्पैक्ट ज़्यादा होता है, तो इसका भी तो फर्क होगा.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying कि when you make the scatter, when you make the correlation matrix and when you make the scatter for each correlation matrix में तो आप सबको इकट्ठा प्लॉट कर सकते हैं ना across the LOS. So you can select certain variables LOS and all the test values and do the correlation matrix. So आपको you will understand many things. So it could be true कि high LOS means a low test value and a low LOS means a high test value, because the Pearson correlation is going to give you a significant correlation. Like you see here कि it's always better to see the significance. जैसे आपने ये देखा होगा in this case, कहाँ गया यार वो, ये Pearson correlation यहाँ आ रहा है, तो Pearson correlation आपको p value भी दे रहा है. So I want to take those which are highly correlated. So I think when I do the heat map, it is definitely telling me those which are significantly correlated. I don't know, we have to do the significant correlation to understand that. ठीक है, ये बात सही है?
ठीक है सर.
So I can also change the color here, yellow, green, blue. So this is also going to tell you the same thing. And I can also make a cluster map. This is a bit difficult. So it has clustered the variables according to which are more correlated or not correlated. Okay. Yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah, so I'll give this file to you. So what we understood from this file is that we have 3 different types of analysis right now. We have the Anova, we have the chi-squared, and then we have the scatter plus correlation matrix analysis, in which I'm just comparing the 2 numerical variables, in which I will be able to understand so many things about the data. So ये race variable भी है जो हमने यहाँ शामिल नहीं किया था. So I can add the race variable here as well in the chi-squared, because race is also that. So this is going to give me at least 25 to 30 different types of analyses and in-depth understanding of the data regarding, the death variable, regarding the LOS, regarding age. And, this is over 5,000 COVID patients almost. So we can make conclusions about the population. Is this thing clear? So data wrangling के अंदर all of this was important. उसके अलावा जो आप काम कर सकते हैं उसके बाद you can make those aggregate plots. For example, like the simple BI level पे जो हम करते हैं, simple BI charts. For example, based on the information that I get here, so for all the relationships that are significant, okay, so if I know there is a significant correlation between death and LOS, okay, so I can now plot death and LOS. So that's of an aggregate plot के that the average LOS for people who are dying and average LOS for people who are surviving. Now I can put those charts on those charts on the BI report because they have a significant correlation. Do you understand this point? Make only those charts at which demonstrate significant correlation, significant relationship in the above statistical tests. भाई एक स्टैटिस्टिकल टेस्ट आपको कहता है कि भाई हमारा कोरिलेशन नहीं है, मतलब डेथ का एलओएस के साथ नहीं है, तो आप उसका चार्ट ना बनाएं. जब कोरिलेशन है ही नहीं तो उसका चार्ट बनाने की क्या जरूरत है? If the p value is greater than 10%, then don't make the BI chart for that correlation. That means nothing. Okay. So ये हो गया. उसके अलावा आप ये भी कर सकते हैं कि यूनिवेरिएट में try to understand each numerical column separately. So draw the histogram, draw the disk plot, box plot, and that is going to give you a lot of information about age and the test lab values. That is a extra information that you get. Okay, so univariate में आप ये भी काम कर सकते हैं. So that's always the case के typically these are KPIs, लेकिन हमारे केस में जो KPIs है वो death है. ठीक है, तो the numerical data is typically the KPI. So now this is what you were supposed to do in the data wrangling assignment that you were given. So if you, I think you should जो जिन्होंने सबमिट करा उनको नंबर मिलेंगे, ठीक है, but I think you should repeat this you should repeat this exercise based on what we have covered today. What do you think?
Yes, sir. It's important.
So then that will be much better. Okay, Acha, we'll take a small break now because I feel tired. I'll just come back after prayers and just we'll meet after 10 minutes. Okay.
Just
Sorry, I don't understand, Kapil.
Sir, I can't see the final point. The point after the main.
Wo I will update in the next week, inshallah, the last meet, because in the you are going to have a final exam as well. You will have the last class. I will still, there might be some things remaining, but you basically next Saturday is your final exam. Okay, so I will give the takeaway exam. So we'll cover some topics and then you can take home exam. You can take 1 week to solve it. It's not a problem. ठीक है
सर क्लास 9 बजे तक ही होगी ना?
जी जी, बस मैं I'll be back after 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah, so in now what we have to study now is how to develop a data wrangling strategy for your organizations. Okay. This is a thing जो कि आपको शायद किताबों में ना मिले because it's derived from my own experience, but I invite you as industry professionals to please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
सर आप sure.
You're not able to see the screen? Can all of you see the screen now?